markets.
Regarding that with the commercial real estate, that is probably going to be part of the cause for all your projection on small businesses just
yes,
folding?
Going bankrupt, just folding right and left, yeah, as though they're not already. I don't know how it is in your particular local area, but we've got lots of vacant space up here, a lot of businesses going bankrupt. So it's going to get a lot worse simply because of the impact on the financial structure. We live as a global society not on the amount of dollars that are out there or the amount of, quote, wealth that's out there, but rather on the rate at which it flows through people's hands. So there's a certain flow rate for money, and if you decrease the flow rate, then everybody starts becoming that much less wealthy. And so your poverty rate increases as the velocity of funds, whatever currency you've got, whatever mechanism of trading, decreases. And basically, it's a truism. If you're in a tribe and you rarely trade, well, you're limited to those resources or wealth you have right there. And the more you trade, the better off you are. Kind of like the 60s motto of the British government, export or die. And it was the more trade they did, the better off they were. And we're now seeing that since the powers that be created this huge, weird financial abstraction and laid it over the globe over the course of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and then matured it in the 80s and 90s, and now it's a super mature system and is starting to die in the year 2000, we're now seeing that reduction, and we're all feeling it. And it's going to get a lot worse now that we've hit that point at which the commercial real estate market collapses, because bear in mind, commercial real estate, even without the overbuilding, is about 4 to 5 times as large as residential in terms of the impact on the economy as a whole. And so even in the previous depression, when they stopped building houses, there wasn't really a huge housing market the way we have now. Mortgages weren't structured the same. But nonetheless, even then they had a commercial real estate market that in all senses was pretty much as it is in the modern sense. And when it finally went, shortly thereafter the bonds collapsed. And oh, by the way, this week we had the largest single offering of federal bonds and treasuries and stuff that we've had in a long time. So it's going to be very curious to see how well they do. I think it's over a course of 3 or 4 days, though. So.
Okay, regarding the powers that be, there's a question from a listener. She says, I ordered his latest report and have a burning question at the bottom of page 33, top page 34. Did I give you this question already?
No.
Okay. Clif writes, it becomes a bit clearer in the data that the issue of most concern to TPTB relative to their brutal suppression of the populace, those are in brackets, is that they have a sense of urgency and anxiety about being able to last, in brackets.
Yes.
And that is her question. Last until what? What do you speculate based on any clues in your data?
The powers that be are running a race. And the race is basically whether or not the populace wakes up to all of the lies and feels the impact of all of the lies and then reacts before whatever it is the powers that be fear arrives. So let's just describe a brief scenario. And we're not saying that this is the inaccurate one, and we'll have more data in a little bit, but what if the powers that be were afraid of a space alien invasion, and they had actually had their telescopes trained and been watching, a giant fleet of rockets or spaceships coming from some other star system, and they were decelerating, and they knew they would be here in 2014. Well, the powers that be are at this point racing against their loss of control. And really what's happening is everything in the social order now is eroding their ability to control all of us, and yet they're desperate to be in control when the alien space fleet arrives for its invasion in 2014. We won't go into why, it doesn't make any difference. because basically this is just merely a spurious example. But they feel a desperate level of fear that they should be in charge or be in a position to, get down in their hidey holes by 2014. But it doesn't do them any good to go down now, because then we could dig them out and root them out, and we'd find out all of this stuff once they left. And so they have to try and maintain control and then gradually slip away in that last year, last 6 months or something like that. And then all of us, stick our heads up like meerkats and say, well, now wait a second, where'd all those guys go? What's going on here? And that's their plan, is that they want to have that kind of a structure emerge where they get to escape at the last minute, and all the rest of us are standing around wondering, what's going on? Make sense?
Yes, that should work against them, too.
Right, so they're trying to last through this process until they can escape. And as I say, it doesn't do them any good to escape early, because then there's no one out guarding their secrets. We find out the secrets, then we all go get our shovels and start digging.
And you also note that they're going to have even more problems than they're having now controlling the minions.
Correct. And it's going to get even worse as the minions are going to be under several layers of pressure, not only from what little they know of the impending spaceship, armada to invade us, and that fear level from the powers that be, because they can sense it. They can probably taste it in the air whenever they're around these guys. But the minions are also going to be under pressure from their own internal structures and their personal relationship to the dollar, etc. No matter how wealthy they are, it's still going to be an impact on their lives as the rest of us become that much more in poverty and impoverished. And it'll create pressures on us. We'll become very raspy. Then the minions will start getting really worried because they're afraid that the raspy populace is going to take it out on the face people who they are. And so, it's a bad time to be a face person for the powers that be. And again, the minion class at the upper level, I am sure, has been promised safety in whatever hidey hole of is being offered to them. But I'm sure there's a level of anxiety because, they know how duplicitous and double-dealing their bosses are, and it occurs to them that they might be double-crossed as well, and so there's all these various conflicting things going on as they're losing power right and left. So they're also going to be really distracted, and they're going to make a lot of mistakes. In fact, they are making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, that might as well be like The Sopranos or something, right?
I've never seen it. I don't watch TV. So,
well, like in a mafia.
Yeah, I've been told what it is, and I have some idea of it, and I would agree it's probably very much like that.
They're always going to double-cross each other for when it serves them to do so.
Right.
Well, that's the way it's been throughout history, anyway. So.
Yeah.
But you also report about some things that you've gathered of prominent people coming up, the pairs and the women, etc., and that a lot of this will be broadcast through the internet, so that will still be functioning at least periodically then, correct?
In some form. And also bear in mind that there's really two different kinds of levels to the internet. There's the whole official level where we're all plugged into backbones that are run by the telcos, and the telcos are essentially the sponsors of the internet. Then there's all the servers that everybody contributes to run the thing. But then before all of that, we had an effective internet system going on. And about the time that, and in fact I was part of it, I was working for an OSP, another service provider, telephone company, and we did billing and stuff for big phone companies. And about that time, this was in the early 80s, ARPA and DARPA, the Defense Department's big think tanks, released to the phone companies the whole internet structure. And they need not. They were using it for years before they made it commercially available. And the reason that they made it commercially available or publicly available, however way you want to think about it, was because the powers that be were starting to get really upset with the homegrown version of the internet, which was all of these BBSs. And many people don't recognize this or didn't participate. But before the internet, you could dial up to a bulletin board system, which we would think of as a forum now, and you'd dial into it. And many of the forums were connected by continuous phone lines to each other, or if not by phone lines, by what we used to call sneakernet, where they would, download all the files onto what back then were floppy disks, put them in crates and mail them back and forth to each other to keep all the servers current. So there was this sort of handcrafted internet forming. and it had its own movement, it had its own, and it was growing leaps and bounds. It had its own ethos, and it felt a whole lot like what you and I would think of as like the independent part of the internet now, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of conspiracy boards and so on, and it functioned very well. And it was working so well that the powers that be put pressure on the military to say, we need to subsume this within our own stuff so that we can control it. And of course they can't control it because the whole meme there is liberation or freedom. But basically what they did was they thought they had an opportunity to co-opt us all into their system, and now they realized that it failed. Further, if you read some of the language from the Rockefellers and from Murdoch and a few of these other individuals at the top end, they are aware that they're caught between a rock and a hard place. They can't shut the internet down without bankrupting themselves and a lot of other individuals that are now based commercially on the internet, yet at the same time it's the internet that's causing everybody to wake up and is changing the social structure upon which they rely for their power and prestige. So, it's a double-edged sword there.
Yeah.
And we can resurrect the old bulletin board system with very little trouble, really. In fact, it'll be easier because nowadays we can send CDs back and forth with much more information, and we know how it all works. We've seen it work on the internet. So pretty soon there'd be a homegrown DNS, and someone would, provide a telephone backbone, and then off you go. So
I didn't know all of that. That is cool.
That's very cool. With that, we'll take another break. You're listening to Clif on Beyond the Ordinary. We'll be back.
Beyond the Ordinary. Yeah, we do have Beyond the Ordinary guests, and this is really one. You're here with Clif, halfpasthuman.com. Do remember, just go get those reports. They will absolutely fascinate you if you stay a little detached or really wish you could just go hide with your pies.
It doesn't do any good, though. That's the whole thing. Our philosophy is that, when I first moved up here into the Northwest, there was this old indigenous population of Swedish loggers, of which I worked with a number of them. And bear in mind, I was like probably 17 or so. And these guys were in their 60s, and so it spanned a couple generations there. But these guys had a saying, that Father Time lays out your life the moment you're born, and no amount of hiding in a hole is going to lengthen it a single day. So why bother, It's kind of like, okay, it makes sense, and it provides you with an easy philosophical approach to things. Yeah, it's bad, but we can laugh at it because it doesn't matter.
Right.
And then from our martial arts training, we know that your death is preordained by universe. And so to a certain extent, it's almost impossible for something to come and kill you before universe would allow that. And I've seen many examples of that and have suffered through a few of those myself where I did things that should have killed me, and I had to live through it because universe didn't want me dead then. And so I'm quite convinced